Hi and welcome to another episode of eCom at One, and today's guest is Olga Wojas. Now, Olga is the UK country manager at DataFeedWatch. Their company helps merchants grow using different feed solutions, and it's actually a product that in our agency we've used for many years, and it's something that we can very much vouch for. How are you doing, Olga? Olga, you okay?
I'm fine, very excited that it's the first time that I'm on a podcast. So yeah, cool. I'm excited. Yeah.
Brilliant. So obviously I'm also absolutely excited to talk about feeds today. It's a topic that I know, we've exchanged a lot of emails and various things on, and we worked together for a long time, and it's a topic that is really deep rooted in obviously what you do, definitely, and in what we do as an agency. So lots of good stuff, and I'm looking forward to getting into some nitty gritty with you. So before we get into that, I'm keen to understand how you became the country feed manager at DataFeedWatch.
Yeah, it's a good question because I guess what country manager does, it's different per each company. So, well, first of all, how I got to work at DataFeedWatch. So I did study e-commerce at the university. My master degree, it's actually e-commerce. So DataFeedWatch is my first digital marketing e-commerce job. And what is interesting here, I'll tell you something interesting, is that I really enjoyed the courses we had at the university. It was like a lot of very practical, Google Ads, setting up actual campaigns in Google Ads, a whole half a year course on analytics, a lot of really good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But no one ever mentioned anything about feed marketing or feed management. So, from today's perspective, I think it proves that it's kind of an underrated area of marketing, considering how important that area can be when it comes to e-commerce. So when I joined DataFeedWatch, I really had a lot to learn. I'm actually still learning. It's not only because digital marketing is such a fast-changing field. It's also because the company is growing so fast. We became from just a regular feed tool. We became a full feed marketing solution, for businesses around the world, and it's been great. We've added a lot of services, features, so it's been great to be part of this growth and to be watching the growth. But what do I do to answer the question? So first of all, as you said, I am the country manager for the UK. So I mostly work with our UK-based customers, which is also a challenge for me because I'm not native to the market. But I also work with US-based customers, but mostly it's UK. And what I do, well, first of all, I coordinate the sales and marketing efforts in the UK. I keep track of what is new when it comes to shopping channels, marketplaces. We have a lot of integrations. We are integrated with really a lot of channels, and on the other end with a lot of e-commerce platforms. So there's always a lot to keep track of, and that's what I'm busy with. But on the other hand, and that's a huge part of my job, is that I basically help our clients. I work with smaller and bigger customers, so really small merchants, or also well-known global brands. So I am with them during the whole process. So we review their feed, the current feeds together. I try to understand their situation. I try to give some good advice on what are their possibilities. I kind of share the knowledge. I can't tell you how many feeds I've set up in my life.
I guess maybe for the listeners to the podcast, obviously as a company, we as a company, we have X amount of clients. As an agency, or we have two agencies here, but obviously you're dealing with, as a company, not just the UK, but you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of agencies. So you are looking after tens of thousands of feeds. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, definitely. And these are very different feeds. It could be, we work either with merchants directly or with agencies. So there are feeds coming from all over the world, and sometimes even if I work with a UK client, I manage the feeds in different languages if they advertise in foreign markets. So that's really a lot of experience that you can get on a daily basis. And then this is why we are in the process with the client, because we just want to share this knowledge. And this is the part of my job that I really enjoy, because I am in touch with our customers literally every single day. So it's really a good feeling to help, because I see a lot of people struggling, you know, with the feeds, and it's great to when they come with a messy feed, and you are able to very quickly help.
Yes, the best one. Yeah, I can do this. We can do that. We can sort this out. We can Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're a lot of experience there in feeds, and you're looking after the whole of the UK. And obviously, but also you've got a team there that are also looking after the rest of the world, and you obviously give some other countries as well. But you really take pleasure in the sort of the nitty gritty, getting into the tools and looking at the feeds, you know, and taking them from maybe a 20% or a 2 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. And I know that's something that your company has helped our company with for many years now. So we're in for a treat. So those guys that are listening to the podcast that are maybe starting with feeds, you've got this sort of element where people have maybe been doing it a while, quite experienced, but I think we've got a lot of smaller merchants on the podcast as well. Where's a good place to start with feeds?
First of all, you have to have a store. That's important. However, data feeds, they don't only apply to e-commerce. That's something interesting. For example, we have customers that are like hotels. They send feeds, for example, to Facebook hotel ads. Could be also like house rentals or travel agencies. It's not only e-commerce, but of course, we would be mostly focused on e-commerce, because that's the definitely the biggest part of our customer base. So, okay, let's say you have a store and you may want to advertise the products that you sell, right? So it can be, you may want to send it to some shopping channels like Google Shopping or price comparison services, marketplaces. On the other hand, that could be like some retargeting services or even affiliate networks. There's really a lot of different channels that you may want to send your products to. And for this, you need a feed. So what is a feed? It's basically all of your product information in a file. So it's a file with all your product information, and there's plenty of different options on how you could export such a file and send it to channels. You know, if you are using a shopping cart, like an e-commerce platform such as, I don't know, Shopify, Magento, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, there's plenty of these. You can use a shopping cart specific plugins, or they are typically like, the downside here is that it's typically a shopping cart one channel connection, but they are cheap, or even sometimes they are for free. So that's one of the ways. There's not that much feed customization available in those plugins, but it's possible to use these. You can of course always manually upload your products to the channels. I think Google Merchant Center quite recently enabled adding product by product. This is obviously just for really the smallest merchants, because it can be quite painful if you have more products. You can have your developers export such a file for you. However, let's not forget it costs money. The time of developers costs money. Sometimes it's very time consuming to even for the little changes that you want to apply in the feed, you need to spend a lot of time waiting for that. So I did hear a lot of complaints about that. So there's of course always an option for a feed tool. That will be a solution that kind of is an answer to all of the downsides of the other solutions, but it's of course an investment as well. There's it is an investment, but there's really a lot of very affordable feed tools out there, and they are typically tailored for the size of the merchant. So if you're a smaller merchant and you're just starting, you can easily find some good deals there.
I think the key there is obviously you need a store. You've obviously got to have a store. We've got to take a feed out. Now there are obviously some tools out there, and you've got developers. Developers can be expensive. The work has been done via various feed tools very cheaply, in comparison to literally a few pounds or dollars or euros, depending on where you're listening, that are going to pull a better feed or a quicker feed and eliminate all that technical challenge. So we've got the feed, and obviously then that feed we can then push into whether that's I would say Google Shopping, which has always been quite a focus of this podcast, but also into other price comparison sites or marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, etc. So we've got the feed, but obviously you can have, then there's a feed and then there's a feed and then there's a feed, you know, there's like a 10 out of 10, which we always like a 10 out of 10 when it comes to feeds and anything really. So what would you say are the top 3 must-haves in any data feed?
This is a very tough question, to be honest. Well, and no matter the solution you choose from the ones that I just mentioned, you have to remember that every channel has different requirements.
Yeah.
But if I can somehow sum it up, I would always say that you have to be aware of the file format that they require from you and the specific attributes in the feed. So I'm going to skip the file formats and choose some of the attributes that would be important. And as I said, it's a tough question because the requirements are always different, but
yeah, because 3 isn't many. Obviously, you've got to have so many, as it won't work. Because obviously, so
yeah,
I guess maybe should we just adjust the sales slightly and say Google Shopping ads or shopping ads?
Yeah, actually, Google Shopping requirements. There's a lot of other channels that share the same requirements with Google. So if you already have a Google Shopping feed, you can do magic with that one feed.
And let's say, so you've got a shopping feed. Obviously, you've got it working. So you've got some of the product ID type and some of the things in there that you have to have, as it will not work. So that's like the minimum requirements. What's the next 3?
Well, actually, the minimum requirement, I would like to focus on that as well, because the 3 important things in the feed, if you're asking me about that, I would say it's still the required part of the feed that is visible in the ad. So I would say number 1 would be the image. Number 2 would be the title, and then number 3 would be the optional fields that can do magic. So when it comes to the image, so I can give some good advice here. When it comes to image, it's very important. You cannot touch the product, so that's your only way. The image you choose for your listings, it play a really big part in getting shoppers to interact. So please use the right image. If you advertise, for example, well, that depends on your strategy, but if you advertise the variants in Google Shopping,
yes,
please use the variant image. Don't take the generic image of the parent product.
All the variants, yeah.
Exactly. So if you sell yellow Converse, have yellow Converse on the picture. Same goes for making sure that the images that you're using are of good quality, have appropriate size. When it comes to image content, for most of the cases, the white background does the job. However, there are case studies showing that for apparel products, it's lifestyle images that do better. Yeah.
So
and
that would be people wearing the product, would it, more so?
Exactly. Yeah, this is what we call lifestyle images. Yeah. And I think one last thing would be not to forget to add additional images. There is a part of it's an optional field for Google Shopping, additional image, and then you can add extra images. For example, if you have a product from different angles, so you can add that as well. So that would be about the image. Now the title, I said the image would be the first, but actually I think title is more powerful. I mean, no one knows the algorithm, but of course it's title that that part of the feed is deciding if your product will be associated with some search terms, right? So when it comes to title, enhancing your product titles, it improves the performance immediately. And there was a lot of studies showing that. So 2 things to remember. Make sure, it's perfect if you can do a keyword research and then you make sure that all these keywords are in the titles. And second thing, think of what makes people click on the title. So these two things. So add keywords, add the variant specific details like color or size. If you don't want to miss those search terms, you know, like if people search for specific colors of products, add the color to the title. Avoid capitalization. Don't include any promotional text that can be suspended. I mean, it's a policy violation.
Yeah.
Order of words in the titles, it does matter. So the best keywords, the strongest keywords, they go at the very beginning. I had a few days ago, we were setting up, well, no, I think it was last week, we were setting up with a client that was selling electronics. I mean, no, it was batteries for different kind of devices. And what people do when they search for these batteries, and they search for specific model number. So what we did, we put this model, we changed the order, and we put this model number at the very beginning of the title. And I think it's been doing great for the campaign.
That's
so
great one, isn't it? Great.
Yeah.
SKU numbers, manufacturer part numbers. You know, people that obviously the intent on searches like that is crazy. If you've already gone through the fact that you want a 55-inch, you want a Samsung, you want a TV, you want the the XY9 42 55 model, you type in that model number, everybody knows that obviously the intent on searches like that. And if your product titles have got those in, when somebody's searching for them in Google, you know, your shopping ads, product listed ads are going to show a lot. Well, there's a lot more chance, isn't there? You know.
Exactly. I mean, this is not going to work for all the verticals, of course. I mean, for apparel products, don't put the model number in the title. But as you said, the electronics, definitely that could work. So that would be the title. And then the power of optional fields that I see a lot of people not really appreciating, or just skipping the optional fields, because the required ones are there, all is fine, approved. That's it. Don't do that. Optional fields can really enrich your product feed and improve the performance of the feeds.
What would be your go-to optional feeds then? Optional variables.
Yeah, so as I said, additional images, that would be the first thing. Then the sale price. I see a lot of people with products that are on sale, discounted, and they do not add that information to the feed. So they don't let Google know about the sale price. So Google cannot really show that on the ad. So it's important to add it. There is also a field, item group ID, which allows you to kind of group your products into families of products if you advertise variants. And then, for example, if someone clicks on the ad in Google Shopping, you see this drop down with other variations of that product. So you can quickly search through. Of course, a must be is the variant specific attributes. For example, for apparel products, I think you tackled that with Andrew. There are some specific fields like color, size, gender, age group that should be added as well. It's a requirement, but it's always good whenever you sell variants of any kind of products. It's good to add this variant specific attributes to the feed.
You would add that as a custom label?
Not really. I would add that as, you know, like color has a specific field. Size the same. Now Google will soon allow to add highlights of the product. So if it doesn't fall under color, size, gender, age group, you can also add it as a separate field. But custom labels, that's great that you mentioned custom labels, because it is really powerful, not that much when it comes to improving the performance of the feed itself, but this is a good tool for the for setting up the campaigns.
Campaign structure.
If you want to break down the campaign, if you want to group your products based on, I don't know, product type. Actually, for product type, you have a separate field that you can set up, and it's not the same thing as Google category. That's another thing to remember about. Typically, our customers...
You're on a roll now.
Bro,
we've got a lot of things there, haven't we? We've got, I think that last 8 minutes, that's real gold there, guys. If you're listening into the podcast, those multiple images for the multiple variants, that's one that we see always missed. If somebody's searching for the blue version of this shirt and they see the pink one in the feed, it's like, well, they're not going to buy that product, are they, in reality? And that's just a big problem, but it's quite an easy thing to resolve. adding in additional data to the titles. And I think we'll park that one for a second because that can be quite a difficult one. But obviously, there's ways to use tools and scripts and automation. So we'll come back to that one because that's what I think we should dive into. Because straight away, you speak to merchants like, well, I can't sit here and change all my products. I can't go into my Magento and change everything. And we're not saying that. We're saying, well, we are potentially saying that, but there's ways to plow through that quite quickly. And then adding in and looking at all these additional attributes that quite often get missed. And I think when you look at that data set as a whole, if you've got blanks in it, that's a problem. So we've got to go through and make sure everything's populated. So I think I'd really recommend to maybe hit pause now on the podcast and rewind 8 minutes and just listen to that piece, because quite often those things, they're quite straightforward, but they are usually missed because quite often we take a feed, we push it in the merchant, we go, hey, we got 85% through, and then we put our products through. 3 months later, we go, Google Shopping didn't work. And that's because you haven't gone in and really, really, really sort of manipulated that feed, adjusted extra data, extra variables in there. So going back to the titles.
Just one thing that I think I'm actually going to use this podcast and send it to every new customer that I get. It would be a good idea. Yeah.
That sounds great. So obviously you've got 5,000 SKUs, 10,000 SKUs, 20,000 SKUs. I think we've got sort of clients with 30, 40,000 SKUs. Obviously, to go through and do some of these things manually is very labor intensive. Now, how can somebody automate some of these processes to make things easier?
So as I said, there is at least a few ways on sending a feed from a store to a channel. And then it's great if you can do some manipulation, some optimization, let's call it this way, on the way before you send the feed to the channel. So if your store is built on some e-commerce platform like Shopify, Magento, and so on, typically if you use a plugin or a feed tool like ours, the product information will be pulled from the store into that tool via API, and that's great because whatever will be changing, it's going to be right away visible in in such a data tool. If you have your own solution, you're not using any of these technologies like shopping carts, you can always export the feed into a file and connect it with a feed tool. So it's either the API connection or you have a dynamic feed that you connect with the tool.
And then you set up how many times a day you want that to update. Or an API is permanently, when anything's changing, it's pushing it.
Exactly. It can be like you can be updating it once a day, but if you want to set up more downloads, it's also possible in most of the feed tools. And what is good, because you asked about the automation, what is good is that typically, I mean, I'm saying that from DataFeedWatch perspective, but what we do after you connect such a store and you choose what channel you want to send the feed to, then we kind of create a default setup. So for example, we know that if you have a Shopify store, your description will be behind the body HTML field. So we set up your feed, but we have some default values for your feed. So at this point, you should be good to go, actually. But of course, there will be part of your feed that you will want to optimize, following everything that I just said. So you may want to change the titles, you may want to change the images. So we call it actually mapping. So we have the templates for specific channels, and this is how feed tools work typically. So you have a template of each channel, so you don't really need to know the requirements of the channel, because it's on our end, we have it in our backend. Your job would be typically to basically fill out such a template with your product information, and that's what we call mapping. So to make it as automated and as little painful as possible, there is quite a lot of different features that you can use. Typically, the system would be based on rules. So you can set up different rules to cover all of your products, not only the current products. And that's an important thing. You don't have to worry. If you set up the rules the right way, if you add new products, they should be covered with your rules anyway. So this is the good side of the automation, that you may set up everything once, and there is a chance that you will not be getting back to the feed tool for quite a while. And of course, we have you can have it all done with very basic mapping, but also there are some very advanced features, very advanced mapping types that you could use. It could be like extracting relevant information from various attributes. Let's say you need to provide a color, but you don't have that in your store as a separate value. You can use a extract from functionality to extract it from the description, for example, or from the title.
So an example could be, going back to my TV example, we've got a, maybe the title at the moment says, very basic. It might say Samsung 55-inch TV black, which is a very bad title.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we've got a part number, model number, SKU number, whichever language you use. So we're saying we could map that field, or that, find that in the description and put that in the title just by creating a mapping that once it will then run that through all the TV catalog or category, subcategory, or the whole site. And now all your titles have now got the part number in, or the SKU number. Same with whether that's color, size, brand, adding all that in. Because quite often, we see that exact problem where, let's say, for example, you sell a branded product and you are the brand. You go to that branded website, and they might say, let's say you go to Nike. I don't think Nike do this wrong, but you go to Nike and it might just say size 12, Pegasus 37, but it doesn't mention Nike because you're on Nike. So then you pull that feed, and that actual product title hasn't got the word of the brand in it, because you think, well, I don't need it, I'm already on the brand. And a lot of brands make that mistake when they then use third-party, or Google Shopping ads, different platforms. They don't have their brands. So they're wondering why, because they think, well, I'm the brand, we don't need to. Well, you don't need to do it on your website, but when you're trying to use feeds on other people's other platforms, you need to add, it's like a simple little thing. And obviously to add that in, the way you're saying, using a tool, your tool, you can just map, brand, push it in. Every product's now got Nike at the beginning, or whatever that may be.
Yeah, actually, you gave us an excellent example. That happens a lot. It's like little things. Sometimes the website style is that all the titles would be capital letters. That's something that Google hates. So don't send capital letters in your, all capital letters in the title. So, that's something that you can very quickly, with just one click, on the recapitalize feature, you can change that. And that happens quite often, that we get this kind of title. So either a missing brand, or excessive capitalization, or really, for example, sometimes it's just the model number, because the website is built like that. So then you really need to work on this. And this is why there are some basic but also more advanced features. Also, you can do some bulk changes, like if you have some words, let's say, that are violating the policy of Google, and there's a lot of them, you can change them in bulk and replace the values with their better equivalents, or maybe better performing keywords. It's actually what I really like about working with a feed tool, is that you can really merge different data files into one file. So for example, let's say you are missing GTIN numbers. That's also something important that I didn't mention when you asked me about important things in the feed. But GTIN, it's not required anymore for Google, but it's really good to have it, the UPIs. So let's say you don't have them in the store, but you have them in some external spreadsheet. You can merge such a spreadsheet with your data feed, your current data feed, and then these GTINs will be added to the feed. So there's really quite a lot of things that you can do. You can also decide if you want to keep your variants, or maybe you want to merge your variants into one product. It's actually, you can do any manipulation. And you know what's the best is that you don't have to be technical. You don't need developers for that. This is why it's important to find a tool that that has an intuitive interface, because the complexity, there's a lot of different things that you can do. So it's good to have a simple, interface.
I think the big thing there, just to clarify to the listeners, is, you know, we're taking this feed from your store, and obviously it's taking what is already there. We're then manipulating sort of over here before we push it back. So we're not changing anything on your website, and we are making your data, you know, so much stronger, better than the competitors, better than what you have. Because the reality is the amount of merchants that will just take a feed and push. So you can get a real head start. This is where I think a lot of the big advantages is won, and where you can really get a head start on your competitors, because taking that feed, you know your products as a merchant. You should know your products as a merchant. You know your manufacturers. You know the better selling products, the 80/20 principle, looking at the better categories, better product sets. I'm really manipulating. It sounds like a dirty word, but they're manipulating.
Yeah.
Manipulating on steroids, you know, really manipulating those top SKUs and making sure that the title specifically and all the data is in there is relatively straightforward. And that's easy for me and Olga to say, but it is with the technologies that are available out there. You know that if you're selling Nike shoes and your product title doesn't say Nike, it probably should. You know, you know, so to add that in, you haven't got to sit there and type Nike 700 times. You've just got to say, find me these products, insert this variable, click, boom. You've got 700 SKUs that have now been adjusted. So using obviously tools like DataFeedWatch enable you to do that very quickly. And as I've said, you know, is a tool we've used for, I don't know actually how long, but a long time. You know, we have a guy here, our head of lead technical, who's been on the podcast also, Andy. Episode 16, I think I might have got that right.
It was a good one, and I was impressed with his knowledge about feet, so I definitely recommend to listen.
I'll pass that knowledge on. But he lives in your interface, you know, and most of our clients, you know, are in your, you know, technology. So definitely, you know, hand on heart, you know, we don't recommend many products on this podcast. Very few. I think we've recommended 3 maybe in nearly 20 episodes now. So really, you know, I definitely recommend you guys that are listening in, if you're looking for a feed tool, then DataFeedWatch is definitely something that gets our sort of gold stamp, definitely. So obviously you've seen a lot of feeds, you know, we haven't put a number on it, but thousands of feeds in reality, tens of thousands as a company, and you personally are in there every day. What are some of the things that you see, some of the biggest mistakes that people should be looking to avoid?
When it comes to feeds, I would say, okay, so maybe something more general. I've noticed a lot of people that are, it's a mistake because they are advertising very low margin products, and that's not always the right thing to do. And sometimes they advertise products that for different reasons people will never buy, or they will buy, but not in that very specific channel that they send the feed to. So that's one thing. And something much like more related to the feed, I would not agree. Let's say I send my feed to Google Merchant Center, I see 30% of products disapproved, and I say, oh, that's okay, I still have the 70%. And it's, you know, sometimes these are issues that you're not able to fix, but in most of the cases these are just, you know, silly mistakes or silly issues that you can easily fix with just a few clicks. So I don't know, if 30% of your products are missing description on the website, and because of that you cannot advertise them, it really doesn't make sense to give up on that, right? So
you are lazy, I think is the reality. You need to get somebody on the team to sit there, get them some headphones, get them to sit there and get it
exactly
sorted.
Especially that you do it once and then you're done, and then you can just enjoy the new sales that you're getting from these channels.
Those sort of things keep me up at night. If you've got to, you know, if you can see there's clearly a problem, go, oh, that's okay. It's not, because there's a thing called high score as well in Google, where you're getting points for, you know, the health of your feed and the various aspects of your feed. And if you're pushing things through that are clearly wrong, you know, you're not sending you're not getting a good score for that. I could talk about that one all day, but
yeah, but you know, it also happens the other way around. You know, it happens that we have people coming to us telling us, let's get rid of the errors, that's what I need, and that's the only thing that I need. So they have the descriptions, images, titles, and then that's it. Google will not show you that your titles are not well optimized. So don't be too comfortable with your feed being 100% approved. Just work on it a little bit more, especially the titles, images, and all those things that I mentioned. And then you will really be able to see the power of feed optimization.
Do you have any thoughts on, so let's say you've got a feed, you know, you've got, like you say, obviously there's certain SKUs using this 80-20 principle, something we're very obsessed with. We wrote various books on it over the years. There we go. So yeah, we even wrote a book on the 80-20 principle for Google Shopping. So you've got your feed, and obviously you know, the 20% of the SKUs are making a lot of the money, but maybe you're focusing in the wrong area. You're trying to sort out the disallowed products. What you can use, or some people use and we use, is supplemental feeds to try and break up the different elements of the feed, different types of products. Have you got any thoughts on supplemental feeds?
Yeah, the supplemental feeds, well, for example, the inventory feed, like that allows you to, because like by default, your product information will be fetched into Google Merchant Center once a day. But if you want your inventory and prices to be uploaded more often, then of course you can use the inventory field. Then don't forget to set up also the download of your feed from the store as a 4 times a day, and yeah, in this case, this supplemental feed like that will work perfectly. But that's for the case when your inventory and prices are changing often. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So this is going so quick, and I don't feel like we're even halfway there yet. So obviously a lot of things there, a lot of different sort of tips and whatnot. But have you got any like real like secret tips, if you like, that are just like that nobody really knows about, maybe, or certain things that are a little bit less talked about, blogged about, talked about, you know, sort of secret bits and bobs there?
Yeah, I mean, I would have a lot of tips on like tricks. Actually, we have like a lot of our customers, they share their tricks, what they do with the feeds via case studies that we publish. We like to share our success stories from our customers a lot. So you can always find this. I'm not going to talk about this because this is not secret. One thing that comes to my mind that would actually be a trick that Google doesn't even recommend, but maybe I would recommend, would be, because you know, it is said that ID field, it doesn't influence the performance of your ads. It's only to identify the product, but the product ID is also this one attribute that is somehow connected with the performance history of your product and with the transaction history of your product. So it has a quality score assigned to it. So what Google say is that, for example, if you're exchanging feeds from one to another, you should keep your IDs the same, so that you don't lose the performance data and Google doesn't see it as a different product. But if you had a very, very bad feed at the beginning and then you optimize it really well, you may want to change your IDs to kind of clear the history. Because if you had a quality score that was very low before and you will keep the same IDs, the bad history of your products may be slowing down your growth. So really consider that while exchanging the feeds when you
never heard that before. That is a corker. I like that. I'll be having a chat with Andy next week.
yeah, that's really something good to consider and to test, actually, because it's not, I'm not going to say that there was a lot of studies on that case. That's my personal idea. So that's really something to test.
Think about if you're, you know, like we touched on some supplemental feed. If you're going to take some of your best-selling products and put them in a supplemental feed, and obviously making sure that you keep the IDs the same, so you're passing that quality score across, just so which is quite a simple thing to do. And you probably wouldn't change the ID, but you might change the ID. So this, great. Okay, so something else I want to touch on is CSS partners. So in terms of like Google Shopping, you know, CSS is something that sort of came into the limelight probably, I think it's about 3 years now. What are your thoughts on CSS? Is it better to be using a different CSS partner to Google?
Well, the answer here is simple. Yes, it is definitely worth it. I mean, I would like to point out first that Google Shopping is a CSS.
Yes.
So everyone who is who is advertising Google Shopping is connected to a CSS.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me if it's beneficial going with a third-party CSS, definitely yes. I don't know if everyone who's listening knows why it is like that, because back in 2017, I think, Google got this huge fine for...
It was 3.4 billion, I think, because there's somewhere
Oh.
it was pretty big.
I didn't know it was that big. Wow. Yeah. So that was because they were promoting their own comparison service on the top of search results.
Yeah.
And as a apology for that, well, they are kind of offering this possibility of a discount. So if you are connected with a third-party CSS,
yeah.
You can save up to, I think, 20% on the clicks that your ads are receiving. So and there's two ways, because you either save the 20% by lowering the bids,
yeah,
and keeping the traffic the same volume, traffic volume, or you keep your bids as they were and benefit from increased traffic, basically. Yeah, one thing to mention here is that, of course, the CSSs take a cut of your ad spend. So that's something that you have to measure if the cut they ask for is worth the potential saving you're getting. But from my experience, it is worth. So, and one more thing, it's only available in Europe. So it's not...
Yeah, it's a Europe specific fine, a Europe specific thing that Google had to do to sort of, I don't think I'll explain this right, but it's almost like making sure that they adhere to the competition rules within Europe. So yeah, a lot of CSS is charged. We work with different CSS partners, and all of our clients get access to a CSS for free, which is quite a sort of a unique service for our agency. But yeah, we've definitely seen that, that 20% that is purported out there. It varies, and like you say, you can keep your bids as they were and save the 20%, which if you're spending, simple math, spending 10 grand a month, you just save £2,000 or dollars or euros. But if you keep your bids the same, you're getting, you're in the auction, you're bidding a lot more than you're bidding 20% more than you were. What we've seen is you're getting even more than 20% back. So it's actually sort of stacks. So we've seen some clients that say, if we keep the math simple, you spend 10 grand a month. So you think, I'll save 8. Well, actually, no. You spend 10 grand a month, leave it where it is. You end up spending more because you're getting better ROAS. So you end up spending, we've had clients that you think, we'll get 10, we'll take it to 8. Now they end up spending 14 because they're getting a better ROAS. So they want us that we then put the bids even more, or we're getting better ROAS at the same level. So it's sort of win-win. It does vary quite a lot, industry to industry, and obviously there's a lot of variables in the auction that you can't really, you don't know. It's not just the bid. Obviously, there's other things as well. The quality of your feed in this case, etc.
Yeah, I think there's also one important thing to mention here when it comes to CSSs, is that the sooner you join, the better, because it is, I guess, quite safe to forecast that there will be more merchants joining, because why not? Yeah. So if everyone has the advantage of the discount, then no one has it really, right? So
it's unbelievable.
The few merchants who want join, they will be at a disadvantage. So
yes. Great. Yeah, I mean, we took on a client yesterday, day before, in the gym industry or gym clothing. Mm-hmm. And we were obviously searching for a lot of the products, and a lot of very well-named brands that are out there, that we all know are not using a CSS still. It's like unbelievable, and they will be spending probably 100 grand a month on or hundreds of thousands a month on ads and not using a CSS. So there's a big opportunity there, definitely for the more of the the David v Goliath out there sort of thing. You've got more of a chance on Google Shopping than ever, because you can be one of the small handful of people that's using a CSS. Yeah. Okay, so free Google Shopping has been the sort of the clickbait this last few months when Google announced free Google Shopping listings. Got launched in the US. It's not quite here in Europe yet, and I believe that is because of this problem with the competition laws. So they're still sorting that out, and that's going to come to the UK and Europe soon. But have you got any tips on, or any recommendations to people on this sort of free Google Shopping, how they can appear, how the guys can appear in the listings for that?
Well, for now, honestly, we don't have any results, since it's a fresh thing. So I cannot tell you how powerful that can be. Well, the main tip I can give you here is that take advantage of that they are giving you this possibility, and make sure. Actually, here the feed optimization gets even more important, because then you really have to, if you're not really paying for the clicks, you really have to make sure that your feed is good quality. So for now, at this point, I would really focus on getting your feed in a good shape, and then let's see what it does for you for free.
A good time now to prepare, even if you're not spending money. Prepare, spend the time to learn some of the things we talked about. And get your feed ready in ship shape. So get it down the gym for a few weeks before Google announce in Europe then that you'll get free shopping listings on the tab, and then you'll be in good shape to obviously start getting some of those clicks. Yeah. So you're seeing it in some of your US clients though, I guess.
Sorry.
In the clients that DataFeedWatch has in America and the US, you're seeing click through on those.
Honestly, I don't have any data, because recently I haven't been working too much with the US customers, but I hope that soon we will be able to share some data. We are quite active on our blog, so I think we are now going through the performance data that we're getting from our clients, and I hope that we will have soon a report on that prepared to understand actually if it's as big as we think it might be.
Yeah, it's literally that new, isn't it? It's still feeding through. I think we've got a few US clients, not many to be fair, just a handful, and they have got it. They got the notification came up in the account probably about 3 months ago now, and it's sort of trickling through. But again, we don't have that many US clients in comparison to the UK. So I think stepping away from feeds for a second and looking at e-commerce as a whole, what's the sort of the big shifts you've seen in e-commerce in this last sort of year? Any specific things that people should be doing within e-commerce as a whole?
Well, of course, the whole COVID situation. Well, people had been shifting from offline to online for years already, but the COVID definitely accelerated this shift, and people buy much more online. However, we saw a lot of it wasn't that fortunate for a lot of verticals, but in general, we can say that e-commerce is growing very fast in the COVID times. And I guess it means that also the customers will be more and more demanding. Let's say they will kind of expect a more enjoyable e-commerce experience, and I think that every e-commerce business should have that in mind. It's very different, many different things, like free shipping or very fast shipping or sorry.
Same day shipping.
Same day shipping, exactly. 2 days is already too long. So really adjusting to the new challenges, it's really important. What I also noticed, I'm looking through the eyes of our customers. So I've noticed that marketplaces are growing recently as a starting point for product searches. So we have really a lot of customers coming to us because they want to list their products on Amazon. I think the free Google Shopping listings, it's kind of an answer to the marketplaces growing as well. It's kind of a battle between Amazon and Google. So yeah, I would say these two things: adjusting to new challenges, new demanding customers, and also the marketplace.
Obviously, a lot more people coming into most markets. I think Shopify are giving away, or they were giving away 6 months free
Yes.
service, and I guess others are doing deals on things. Obviously, bringing a lot of new merchants to every industry. So I think, like you say, you've just got to be that bit. You can't just take things for granted. You've got to be keeping a good eye on your industry. Making sure that you're adding, like you say, looking at your deliveries, maybe adding click and collect if that's something that's appropriate for your business. Making sure that we're utilizing some of the newer things like free shopping or free listings when it comes through. Yeah, it's an interesting time, isn't it? I think obviously a lot of verticals, there's a bit of a mix out there, but a lot of e-commerce verticals, they've surpassed, Black Friday, and so many success stories we're seeing, and I know you're seeing. Not all success, but there's definitely a weight there. I think obviously it's not like a bricks and mortar where there's a lot of challenges. E-com so strong. Some of the things we're seeing, it's ridiculous. I almost dusted off my my sort of e-com. I used to run e-com stores for 10 years before we set up the agency, and I was, when this all kicked in, I'm thinking, I was looking at warehouses and stock, and I think, no, stick with it. It's obviously some insane shifts. 300, 400, 500% we're seeing on a lot of sort of verticals. So that's been an absolute blast of absolute sort of quick fire round. Lots of great takeaways there. I think I suggest anybody that's listening in that's still with us now. From my point of view, I've been involved with literally hundreds and hundreds of feeds, hundreds and hundreds of e-commerce stores, and this episode's got some real gems in it, and some real actionable points that I really suggest that, if you got this far, go back and listen to the damn thing again, because there's some really good things in here. The transcript will be there with the episodes. So all the things that we've talked about, we'll link off. We'll link off the data. DataFeedWatch and so forth. So I always like to end every episode with a book recommendation. Do you have a book that you would recommend to our listeners?
Yeah. I mean, if you would like me to recommend something strictly e-commerce.
No, it can be anything. It doesn't matter.
I have, so let's do this. Can I have one like a private non-business book and then one e-commerce book? Yeah. Is that possible? Perfect. So the e-commerce one would be the Ultimate Guide to E-commerce Growth. It's written by Ian and Mark Hammersley. They are two brothers, 15 years of experience in e-commerce consultancy. So they do have quite a lot to say about the e-commerce growth, that's for sure. And if I can do the private recommendation as well, I am reading, I didn't finish that book yet, but I'm reading maybe this one is quite popular. It's Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. Do you know that one?
I know it, and other people have mentioned it, but I haven't read it. Yeah.
It's really great. If you want to understand the humankind, it's really, I think it's a great book on many different levels to just read it and go through the whole history of humankind. It's really great. So yeah.
Okay, so we got two recommendations there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard, for having me in the podcast. It was really a pleasure. For everyone who have some issues with their feeds, who are struggling with their feeds, you can find me on LinkedIn, and we can review your feeds if you want to. Just let me know if you need any help.
So if the guys want to find you on LinkedIn, just obviously search for your name.
Olga Wojas.
And then obviously if they want to connect with you directly, it's via DataFeedWatch's website as well. But either way. Yeah,
my email is olga.wojas, which might be difficult to spell, but it's at datafeedwatch.com. You'll find me on DataFeedWatch website. So we'll
link it all up in the show notes.
Perfect.
So, thank you so much.